They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And hey, I get it. You make mistakes, I make mistakes, we all make mistakes. But what separates good from bad Deadlock players are the ones who try to learn from their mistakes, all right? So in this video, I wanted to go over 8 big mistakes that Deadlock players make, but check this out. We're also going to discuss how to fix them, all right? So mistake number 1, and this is probably the most important mistake that we're going to discuss today, all right? So soak it in. The other mistakes are probably gonna build from this one, but the number 1 mistake is that you are feeding, all right? I get it, there is a lot of people out there who are new to MOBAs, new to this style of game, they're used to shooters, but in a game like Deadlock, the more you die, the stronger you are making the other team. They are getting more money, they are getting more experience. Everything that they get that can make them good is coming from you dying, all right? So you need to do whatever you can to minimize your feeding, all right? Not all of us can be the best Deadlock player in the world. That's totally fine, all right? But the goal should be to try to die as little as possible. So try to learn from your mistakes in the game. What is happening? Sit back. If you keep ending up back in your spawn because you are dying, take that cooldown time to sit back and reflect. What is happening that is making you die too much? Are you going too aggressively, all right? Are you not learning how to run away? Do you need to work on your movement, all right? These are all things that can help you get away and get out of fights if you are feeding, all right? Because again, it's not just you that you're making a problem for. You are creating a gigantic issue for the rest of your team. You might have a good team on your hands. You might have people on your team that can carry you to victory. But the more you help somebody on the other team spiral out of control because you keep feeding them, it's gonna make everybody's life a lot more difficult. So do whatever you can to get away and not feed. Big mistake number 2. This is something that I see constantly. It is that you don't know when it's time to run away from a fight, all right? This is kind of involved with feeding, but this is something that I've seen, you know, mid-tier players do as well, people who have a little bit of experience. You need to understand when it's time to leave a fight. There are plenty of times in Deadlock, especially during the mid game, when you and your team will be running around trying to do something and you'll take a fight, or maybe you get ganked and then your team comes to help you out, or maybe you're ganking and your team comes to help you out, whatever it is. But you need to understand when a fight is not going your way and it is time to leave, all right? So what can you do about it? Pay attention, see what's going on. Have one eye on the obituary, see who's dying, which team is having the advantage in this specific fight. Let's say in a perfect scenario, you are fighting 6v6, both teams are there. If you immediately lose 2 to 3 players and you see that the other team hasn't lost that much health, it is time to bounce. It is time to get out of there, all right? You need to see that the fight is not going your way and it's time to leave. Because in a game like Deadlock as well, a team wipe at the wrong time in this game can end the game, all right? Your cooldown times might be a minute, so if your entire team dies, especially if you get staggered, so when some people die at the beginning of that fight, then you die a little bit later, now you have people respawning at different times. So you need to pay attention to what's happening in that specific fight and say, you know what? It's time to run away, go heal, regroup, and see what we can do in the next fight. Mistake number 3 is that you are not that great at last hitting and denying during the laning phase. So in Deadlock, the laning phase is the very beginning of the game. You are usually on a lane with your teammate or you are on the lane by yourself, all right? There are creeps coming from both directions, your creeps and the opponent's creeps. When a creep dies, a little orb floats in the air. For you, those orbs are like a tealish blue-green. For your opponent, when they die, you'll see like a little fiery orange orb float up. If you are able to shoot your orb, you are getting money. If your opponent shoots your orb, they are getting money. But that works out for you as well. When your opponent's orb floats up and you see that little fiery orange orb, if you shoot it, you are denying your opponent money. So it is very, very important to focus on these last hits. You can see the health of the creeps. You can even see the health of the creeps on your lane as they are going down. So you can have an idea of when you need to get ready to hit those orbs. One of the most important things during this phase is denying, because you are killing two birds with one stone. Not only are you denying your opponent that money, but you are taking the money for yourselves. So you can have a pretty big advantage on your lane if you are very good at denying. Now, you also wanna make sure that your opponent is not denying too many of your creeps. And listen, I have seen a lot of opponents that I faced up against on lanes where they are just instantly denying my creeps. So something that you need to work on is last hitting your creeps with melee attacks, because what that does, it instantly gives you the souls rather than turning into an orb that floats in the air. Now, this is a little bit risky because you need to get right up on the soul. When you're shooting, you can have a little bit of cover, you have a little bit more movement. But when you're trying to melee these creeps, you have to get right up there, and sometimes that leaves you open to get shot by the other team, all right? So make sure you're working on your movement, get your timing down, and know when you can go in there and get a melee hit, so that way you don't have to worry about the opponents denying your creeps. Mistake number 4, you don't know how the heroes work, all right? Now, I get it, there are a ton of new players coming to this game, but do your best to try to learn how all of the heroes work, all right? Originally, I had this note as, you don't know how your hero works, which is huge, but the other thing is, if you don't understand what you're going up against, it's going to be hard to gauge what types of fights you should be taking and which ones you shouldn't be taking, okay? So get used to these heroes. Maybe it's you going into different games and trying out different heroes. If you're in the lower MMR brackets, like, it's not a huge deal, you know, if you lose because you're testing out a hero, but if you wanna be courteous to your team and not feed too much, you can go into the sandbox, play around with the heroes, understand what their different abilities do. You can even go into bot matches, all right? But this is also something that you'll gain with experience. But you need to understand what each of your abilities do, what types of builds work. And as you keep playing, you're gonna see opponents who just completely roll over you. And it's important to take a look, say, what abilities are they using that's really getting me? What kind of items are they using that's making them so strong? Because that's something that not only helps you watch out for the opponent, but when you try that hero, you kind of have a good idea of what you could be using to improve your game as well. And now for a quick break in this video. If you're liking this video, if you are enjoying this content, do your boy a favor, give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe. I'm making a ton of Deadlock content. Mistake number 5, you are not paying attention to your mini-map. So in the bottom right corner of your screen is a mini-map. It is showing you the whole world of Deadlock right in front of your eyes. And you need to do your best to check that mini-map. It's kind of like driving. Hopefully, I don't know, kind of hopefully, kind of not. I don't know how old you guys are, but hopefully some of you are drivers and you know, like, you always got to check your mirrors. You're checking your side view mirrors, you're checking your rear view mirror. This is top of mind because I've been teaching my son how to drive, all right? But that's what your mini map has to be like. You need to be paying attention to that mini map and have map awareness. You need to know where the other team is, where your team is, so you can better position yourself, all right? Is the opposing team pushing a certain lane? Do you need to go defend? Are the opponent's creeps pushing your lane and you need to run back to base and defend that lane and push it out a little bit, all right? Is your team going for a gank? Is your team getting ganked, right? You need to look at this mini-map regularly and see what's going on so you can make the right decisions. When you're not paying attention to this mini-map, bad things are gonna happen. You're not gonna realize when everybody on the other team is missing and you're just kind of standing there by yourself. Typically, this is a bad sign and you're about to get jumped by multiple people on the other team, all right? But paying attention to the mini-map can also like just really help you out by knowing where the best players on the opponent's team are, right? Let's say you are on the blue lane and you see that the player on their team that is like 20-0 is over on like the purple lane, all right? You could say, okay, cool, safely, I can push this lane. I have about X amount of time if this person were to rotate and try to get to me, you know what I mean? So it can help you push, it can help you retreat, all sorts of things. It can help you help your team out. It makes everybody's life easier when you are paying attention to this mini-map. And speaking of paying attention attention to your mini-map, one of the other big mistakes is you are not communicating, okay? Now, some of you don't have microphones. I don't know why. I've been playing competitive online games for about 20 years now, and the one thing that I always made sure I had was a microphone, all right? It is so important that you communicate in this game. Are you on a lane and you are just getting rolled by somebody playing very aggressively? Do you need somebody to come help? This is something that happens a lot. You might be on a lane where it is not a great matchup. Maybe the other hero is just a good counter to your hero. Like, you know, you're a little bit more close range, they're long range, like maybe they're like a Talon, or maybe they're like a Vindicta, and you need to call out, yo, can you come over here and gank, maybe make my lane person stop playing so aggressively? You need to communicate as much as possible. Maybe you see something on the minimap, maybe you say, hey, we need to go fight the mid boss, or we need to retreat, we need to do this. You need to communicate as best as possible. I can't tell you how many people I've hopped into a game with where I'm communicating to them, just randos I'm playing with online, and then like 20 minutes into the game, one of them hops on the microphone, and it is kind of infuriating. It's like, okay, so we could have been talking, we could have been strategizing and communicating with each other this whole time, and now you're hopping in here. But again, I understand not everybody has a microphone. This is why you need to understand that this game has a chat wheel, all right? So by default, I believe it's mouse 3. If you hold down your mouse 3, which is the wheel on your mouse, if you hold that down, it will pop up a chat wheel, and it has some very useful commands that you can use. So even if you don't have a microphone, you could say things like, hey, help, you know, or whatever, or fall back. You could say all sorts of things. So do whatever you can to communicate in game. You can also hold down Alt on your keyboard and click the minimap. So if you see somebody on the minimap and you want people to pay attention, you could also write on the minimap. Hey, there's also an in-game chat. If you hit enter on your keyboard, you could type to your team. There's a lot of different ways to communicate. Ideally, you have a microphone, so that way you don't gotta run and hide behind a corner to start typing or anything like that. So figure out a way to communicate. In team-based games, which Deadlock is, it is of the utmost importance to communicate with each other. Mistake number 7 is that you are just far too aggressive during the laning phase, all right? During the laning phase, this is a time for you to get money, all right? It is for you to get money, it is for you to deny the other team money, but I constantly see new players who just think this is a shooting game and they just run around and whatever, they're just trying to get kills early on. This is not a great idea, all right? You do not need to kill them early on. Nobody is going to give you a trophy at the end of this game if you get the first kill. Typically, the first kill is because somebody is playing way too aggressively, all right? Sit back and wait. Take your time, get some money, get some items, communicate with your teammate. It is great to get those early game kills, trust me, but you need to wait for the right opportunity, all right? The other team is gonna do something where they get a little bit too aggressive, or they don't know that you have certain abilities or items where you could, take them on, and you can communicate with your teammate, or you can call out to somebody on another lane to say, hey, come gank. There will be a time for you to get kills, all right? Deadlock matches are typically anywhere from like 20 to 40 or even 50 minutes. There is plenty of time for you to get kills. You don't need to do it within the first 2 minutes of the game, because what's gonna happen is if you get too aggressive, if you start pushing too much and you run over there while they're falling back, their tower's hitting you, 2 of the people on the other team are hitting you, you're going to die, and you're going to do that thing that we talked about in mistake number 1, which is feeding. Do not feed in this game. A lot of times it happens because you are playing far too aggressively. And finally, mistake number 8 is that you keep trying to fight the Fed guy head on. There is always somebody on the other team, well, not always, but 90% of the time, there's gonna be somebody on the other team who is very, very strong, all right? Maybe somebody on your team was feeding them. Hopefully it's not you, because you learned from mistake number 1, okay? But somebody on the other team is very strong. Remember, every time they get a kill, they are getting more money, they are getting more stats, they are getting more abilities, they are getting everything you have, only better, all right? And I see a lot of people do this because they keep thinking that Deadlock is just a shooter game. In most games, that are shooters, you are just like, okay, maybe my aim is better than this person. I could just outshoot them. But in Deadlock, the other person, they're gonna have a lot more health than you do, all right? So they're going to be able to outlast you. Maybe they have defensive items. Maybe they have healing items like lifesteal, all right? So if you see somebody is very strong, you need to take a look and say, hey, how much stronger is this person than me? Do I have anything that can attack their weaknesses, okay? Because if you don't, it is a terrible fight to take on. If you don't know how to tell because you can't just see like what their level is, all right, take a look at the very top of the screen and you will see the economy. You will see how many souls everybody has collected, all right? So let's say it's mid-game and you have about 10,000 souls and somebody on the other team has double your souls. They have 20,000. Avoid fighting that person at all costs, head on. Do not take this person on in a one-on-one. If they have 10,000 more souls than you do, they're going to be so much stronger than you are, all right? So this is just becoming aware of what's going on. And there's plenty of times to take down the opponent on the other team who is very strong, but it's probably gonna take some team fights. It's probably gonna take some communication. It's probably gonna take some map awareness so you can jump this person, all right? You need to balance the scales. Like, trust me, you need to take this person out, but there is a time and place for that. Just remember, this is not just a regular shooter where you need to out-aim the other person because they are getting a whole lot stronger than you. So bide your time, and just like the laning phase, take them out when the timing is right. All right, everybody, those are the 8 biggest mistakes that people are making in Deadlock. If you've been playing the game, if you're loving this playtest, let me know down in the comments, what are you thinking the biggest mistakes that people are making in Deadlock? I wanna hear from you, all right? But anyways, that's all I got for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell, and have an amazing rest of your day. I will see you in the next one.